Today we're going to be looking at that question, what if Jesus was never born? And this is actually week 1 in a series that we're starting called Christmas at the Movies. And this series will carry us through this entire Christmas season. Now, I'm reminded of a story. It actually happened in the 19th century of a man who had been touched by this same grace, this same mercy, and the same love. And he just wanted to tell other people about it. But he said, you know what, I don't want to be inside of a church building or church walls, because the church at this time had sort of separated itself from what the early church was like. And so he decided, you know what, I want to preach the gospel, but I want to go somewhere that people aren't going to expect me to go. And so he chose to go to a Quaker graveyard. Let me tell you, in church planning books, a cemetery is not a good place to start your ministry. All right? I'm going to perch myself up on this headstone here and let me preach to you. Lots of people are going to come. No, it doesn't work out that way. But see, he wanted to reach a different kind of people. See, in this area, in this city, that there were a lot of people that would never, ever be allowed in a church. But they were out in the streets. They were hanging out by the cemeteries. They were hanging out. He wanted them to hear the good news of Jesus. He wanted them to be impacted by the gospel. So he sets up in this cemetery. He gets up and he starts sharing. And it was an instant success. People began to respond, and they're like, man, they began to receive Jesus. Lives were changed. People are saying, man, I want to follow after Christ. All these people started coming. His first converts, they were thieves, prostitutes, gamblers, and drunkards. That's my kind of crew, man. You can do something with people like that. So he went and he tried to plug them into church. So he went to all these pastors and said, hey, she was a prostitute last week, but she's following Jesus this week. Will you let her in church? They're like, no, she can't come in. He was taking, are you serious? They're following Jesus now. They've changed, God is working in their life. And pastors were like, no, they can't come in. You see, church had drifted so far away from grace, mercy, and compassion that they weren't even allowing these individuals into the church anymore. But this guy said, no, we need to raise these people up to continue following after Christ. And so he began to pour into their lives, began to give them spiritual direction, and began to pastor these unwanted people. In 1867, there were 10 full-time workers that were helping in this project. By 1874, their number had grown to 1,000 volunteers and 42 evangelists who would just go out and preach the gospel of Jesus. They had banded together and they were serving under the name the Christian Mission. The leader became known as the general of what they called the Hallelujah Army. In 1878, an annual report was written with these words. They were right across the top. These words said, "The Christian Mission is a volunteer army." He didn't like what he saw. He grabbed a pencil and he went over and he crossed off the words volunteer army. And he wrote 2 other words on there. He wrote the words Salvation Army. Who was this guy? His name was William Booth. He was the founder of the Salvation Army, reaching out to a bunch of people that the church and the world had forgotten, that the church was happy that they weren't inside of their 4 walls, and the world just could care less about. He reached out into their lives. And over the course of 4 years, between the years of 1881 and 1885, this ragtag bunch of individuals who were fired up to follow after Jesus, who had been changed by this grace and mercy that we're talking about this morning, they reached over 250,000 people. 250,000 people were converted to Christ in 4 years' time by this radical bunch of individuals. Now, why do I tell you that story? I tell you that story because I want to ask you a question this morning. And my question is simple. It's simply this. What about you? Have you become a living example of the compassion and mercy of God? When people look at your lives, can they just look at you and how you live and say, there's something different about this man? There's something different about this woman. There's something different about this teenager. They're not like the others. Not because of what's coming out of your mouth, but because of what is coming out of your life. Compassion and mercy are these important bedrocks inside the foundation of your soul and the foundation of your life. I believe that if Jesus was never born, this world would be an incredibly dark place. It would be incredibly self-centered and self-seeking. It would be more consumed with taking than in giving. You see, Jesus is an example for us more than how we live on Sunday mornings, but how we live each and every single day of the week. And this Christmas season, for this next month, maybe the rest of your life, I want you to begin to ask yourself a certain question. I want you to begin to ask yourself, how is Jesus' life inspiring me to live each and every single day? Is Jesus' life inspiring me to live different? Is it affecting the way that I act at work, around my family, around my friends? Is it affecting what I do when no one is looking, when no one would ever find out? Am I choosing to live my life according to the tenets of Jesus Christ? And ask yourself this question: if you never received Jesus' grace and mercy in your life, where would you be today?